Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Martin Garlick, and I'm the co-founder and COO here at Good Pup. I'm here with Kate Hembry, and we're here to present our second webinar series on dog body language. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind people about what Good Pup is. Good Pup is a service that connects dog owners with certified positive reinforcement dog trainers via video chat. And in 2020, we launched our shelter program, our shelter initiative, which is allowing us to partner with dog rescues and shelters around the US and provide our services at a discounted rate, and as well as partner with our shelters to help them to do their life-saving work. So we're super proud of this initiative. And as part of that, we've heard from many of our partners that continuing education and having members of their staff and their community understand dog training and dog behavior more is going to help everybody in the dog training community. So we launched our webinar series. This is our second one, as I said, on dog body language. And this is going to be very interactive. So Kate's going to go through some videos and pictures, and we'll pause a few times so you can write down what you see. So please be ready to watch and look for the things that Kate had talked about in the webinar series 1. And before I hand it over to Kate, I just want to introduce her. She's been with Good Pup from the very beginning. She's our head of training and behavior. Before joining Good Pup about 4 years ago, she spent 20 years in the veterinary community as a CVT with a specialty in behavior, as well as a dog training consultant. So we're super lucky to have her here presenting this information. And with that, I will hand it off to Miss Kate.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. So excited to have you guys back. As Lisa said, this is a follow-up to our other webinar, but if you weren't able to join us for the first one, no big deal at all. We're going to still be going through lots of body language and identifying various ways that dogs communicate with us. And so you're going to learn a lot here as well. Couple of quick things before we get started. You guys, if you have questions, I want to encourage you to reach out to me. You can always email me directly at Good Pup as far as those signals of body language. So please let me know. And also, in order to be interactive, we're going to actually pause after various pictures and videos to give you guys the opportunity to look at, write down, identify body language before I go forward. So hopefully that gives you guys a time to look at it yourself, and then we'll break it down and discuss afterwards. So bear with us as we do those pauses. So to start with, we're going to begin again with just looking at the big picture, right? Our first body language is about all the various components, body components, the way that dogs communicate, their ears, their eyes, their tail. This time, we're actually looking at these components together as a whole and working to assess what we think that dog is thinking or communicating with us, right? And we want to keep in mind, of course, that each dog is an individual, so each dog will have their own style of communication. We also want to keep in mind that many signals are used in a multitude of ways to communicate, okay? And when we get to our videos, and we'll talk about this more, we're going to talk about how body language is fluid, how there's an ebb and a flow to it when dogs communicate as well. So to start us off, we have 3 pictures here of dogs we're going to look at as the whole dog. So I want to know what you guys are going to see across the board on this first dog. So our first dog is a lovely German Shepherd. And what I'm going to do is pause for about 10 seconds and give you guys an opportunity to look at her yourselves and see what you see. What signals is she giving us? Okay, so hopefully you guys came up with some ideas. Now, before we talk about those signals, I also want you to think about, based on those signals you see, what is this dog thinking? What is she communicating? Is she happy? Is she stressed? Is she anxious? Is she fearful? So keep that in mind, because that's what it's all about, right? Being able to interpret our dogs and know what those signals mean. So let's go to our next picture where we have broken down some of those signals. Great. So hopefully you guys got some of this when you were looking at it, right? So on this dog, You've got those ears that are very specific to what she's thinking. You've got one ear forward, one ear backward. Got some piloerection happening. So that's our hackle standing up on the back. Now remember, when we have hackle standing up, piloerection, I've got a physiologic response. What this means is I've got hormones happening within my dog that is influencing the intensity of those signals. Okay, and that's very important to note because that's what we want to get in front of, is that intensity. We've also got a direct stare with what look like might be some dilated pupils. We have a closed mouth. We've got our weight. Remember, posture is a big one. Our weight is pushed away. It's distributed to the back. That dog is moving towards that person behind them, right? And I've got a raised paw in the front, which is a sign of apprehension on a dog, okay? And of course, don't forget our tails, right? We talked about tails being really indicative of how dogs feel. And it's not so much about whether or not they're fluid or wagging, but where they are in location to the level of the back. So in this picture, this tail is down the back of the legs and even looks slightly tucked, right? Now, my assessment of this dog is that she is anxious. You could argue that she's fearful. We're not in her brain. We don't actually 100% know. But we do know that she's giving all the signals for being stressed. And the reason I'm more inclined to think that this stress is based on a level of anxiety, of not knowing, of being worried or unsure, is because of a couple specific signals, which is one, the ears, one forward, one backwards, okay? Dog doesn't know what to do. Very conflicted. And then also that paw raise, that sign of apprehension, is another really big signal when I have dogs that are anxious or unsure about what is about to happen, okay? So that is my interpretation of this situation. And again, it's really hard to say because we don't have the full picture. I don't know what this dog is staring at. Is it a dog? Is it a squirrel? Is it a snowmobile? Because it looks like she's in snow. It's hard to say. We've got to look at everything if we're going to assess the situation. But on this moment in time, that is how I would interpret it. And again, even if we don't have the answers, if we don't know exactly what it is, this is the time we want to be interrupting. This is the time we want to be redirecting our dogs, coaching them on what else they should do before things escalate, before our signals become even more intense, right? And if we know that about our dogs, the ones we're adopting even more, we can communicate that with their new owners. We can go ahead and set that owner and those dogs up for success and helping them build a bond from the start with better communication. All right, let's look at our next slide. This is this poor little dog. This is a puppy. And again, I'm going to give you guys about 10 seconds. And I want you to actually look at the dog and think about the signals, the body components that you see on this dog. Okay, so hopefully you guys came up with several different things, wrote them down, talked to your peers you might be watching this with. And now I'm going to ask you to think about it. What do those signals mean together, right? Well, this is a fearful dog. This dog is really, really worried about what is happening, what is in front of it, right? Look at my ears arched forward. They're the same, the right and the left, but the actual cartilage is articulated. So the dog's holding the ear out and pointing it down. That is a definitive signal of fear, okay? Furrowed brow, I've got dilated pupils, so I've got a physiological response happening here. Closed mouth again. Weight, again, distributed back, away. This dog is pushing itself into the corner, trying to get away from what is scaring them. Very, very tense musculoskeleton, another signal of a physiological response. That cowered lower body, right? And the tail, we can't even see. It's so tightly tucked. So this dog, I feel fairly confident, is very, very fearful about what is about to or may happen to it, right? And these are the dogs that I think for many of us, we want to console. We want to help them feel better. We want to reach out and put our hands on them and say it's okay. But unfortunately, when I have a dog like this and I reach towards them and I make myself even scarier getting closer or by touching them, then that's where my signals intensify. Remember, I've got hormones and end up with a dog in fight or flight because my hormones start to build. And then I have an aggressive response to that sensation, which is how I get to a bite. So again, it's about communicating with our clients, with our adopters, letting them know this is what our dog is telling us. So we can prevent a problem from arising and hopefully be in front of that and help them have a better communication. They can work to not have a concern where the dog is fearful. All right, let's look at our next picture with a dog as far as a moment in time. And again, I'm going to give you guys about 10 seconds. Look at the dog, see what you see. I also, while you're looking at these signals, think about what is this dog communicating? Are they happy? Are they stressed? Are they anxious? Are they fearful? Okay, so hopefully everybody's able to look at this dog and say that this is a happy dog who is not stressed, right? I've got soft brows. My eyes are forward, looking directly at what's coming. Look at my mouth. I've got that V shape. For those of you who may not have been in our first body language, where the lips on the end of the mouth and the shape that they are in can be very indicative of where a dog is at emotionally. V is a happy dog, and C, curled back here, tends to be a very concerned, worried dog. Generally a dog who's on its way to showing a different display of aggression. But this dog has a nice, wide open, tongue hanging out, V-shaped mouth. Loose musculoskeleton. Look how wide those strides are, right? They're long. And that body, forward movement directly at what's coming, and confident. All the weight is distributed evenly on all 4 feet. And that tail, level with the back. That's what we're looking for, right? This is a confident, happy dog. This is when learning can happen. This is when nice bonding happens. This is the kind of communication we want to see in our dogs. And we want to be able to help our owners identify stressed, anxious, fearful communication so that we can get them to this, right? And hopefully get them on the right path with connecting and building that human-animal bond. All right, so again, those are just some pictures looking at the whole dog, working to look at every body component together and then combine them to figure out what we think that dog is saying to us, okay? But that's just a moment in time. It's just one moment. We can't see everything that's going on around it, and things change. Remember, I said that you can have multiple signals, or a signal means multiple things, right? You can also have individual dogs use signals differently. And then also we have fluid communication, right? So dogs, just like us, communicate based on responses given to them. If I say something to someone and they respond a certain way, my response back is going to be influenced by that. So I want you guys to see that ebb and flow we get with communication as well. In order to do that, we're going to look at a couple of videos. So let's move into our videos. And we're going to look at 3 videos. Okay, we're going to look at an anxiety-driven video, a fear, and a play video. And what we're going to do is watch the videos as the whole thing. So you guys can look at the communication style, what's happening. Then we're going to look at individual segments, frames, a moment in time of the video, starting from beginning to end. There's about 5 per video. And we'll break down the body components in those, and then we'll watch the video again. Because my goal is that you guys can see, I want you to see how things change, how they change back and forth. So it's good, it gets a little intense, it goes back to easy or good, or it just continues to intensify my level of communication. So let's start with our first video.
Good girl, Zora. You want a treat? Zora. Zora. Hey. Okay, Max. Okay.
Okay, so now, as I said, we are going to break down several frames in the video and look at those for the body language and assess them. So let's start with our first frame and talk about what you guys think you might see. Okay, so this is the first picture, the very beginning of the video, and I'm looking for body language that you see on the dog, although, right, cats have their own unique style of body language. And you can certainly see a variety of body language on the cat too. So I'll give you guys a couple seconds. All right, so now let's talk about what we see. So our next slide shows, so we've got that lowered, hunkered, almost cowering-like body language in the crate, right? Got a nice, what looks like might be a whale eye out of the corner of the eye of the dog looking at the cat. Mouth in this captured moment is closed, but keep in mind, this is a very vocal video, right? Lots of barking going on. And one thing we didn't break down and talk about in our first body language, because body language itself, really, we could talk about it for days, but was vocalization. Right, you can hear my lovely dog shaking as part of her vocalization right now. But vocalization in and of itself can also be very communicative with a dog. So low-pitched barks are generally worried or fearful. High-pitched barks tend to be attention-seeking or alert barks. You can have all kinds of oogles and Shiba Inus, for example, make all kinds of noises when they're talking to people, but not a lot of barking generally. And then you can have growling, of course, right? So I don't want to get stuck on that, but you can look at vocalization as well as a whole. And vocalization also can be very indicative of body language. So other things, back to our picture we see in here, you've got that nice direct stare right at the cat, very intense, right? And those ears are forward. Right, so the cartilage is held up and those ears are turned. And this dog is really intense and stressed about this cat in front of them, right? Okay, so let's go to our next frame and break it down. Okay, so here's another picture. You can see where the cat is. You can just see the tip of the tail, right? So give you guys a few seconds to assess this one, and then we'll break it down as well. Okay, all right, so now let's talk about what do we see in this picture. Lowered head, so the back of the body is actually up here, but the head is lowered. Got some piloerection, got some hormones getting started, right? If I've got hormones, I've got physiologic responses, my signals are going to intensify. Ears are back now a little bit, so the dog has moved them from the front to the back. Look at that raised lip. You could look at it and say that there's a C curl in the back. Still have a direct stare at that cat, still have a furrowed brow, right? And of course, we've got barking still happening. So what I see from frame 1 to frame 2 is that my signals are starting to get a little bit more intense, and I have signals that indicate to me that I'm having a physiologic response as well. So the brain is starting to produce some hormones in response to the stress of this cat. All right, let's go to our next frame. Oh man, you cannot beat this picture. I hope you guys know how hard it is to capture this picture, this moment in time, right? So hopefully everybody can see what I'm seeing in this picture. I'll give you guys a couple seconds. All right, let's talk about what we see in this picture. Of course, everybody should be able to see those dilated pupils. See all that reflective light, right? Yes, so we know this dog is really starting to amp up. Her body position is now curved, almost pushing to the back of the crate. My ears are remaining back. They may even be a little bit more pinned than they were. And I've got a nice lip lick caught there too. Now, let me ask you guys, do we think that some of these signals are in response to the hand in front of them? So the owner's actually saying, no, Zora, right? Do we think that some of this could be a response to the owner? I do. Heck yeah. Do I think that the dilated pupils and the ears pinned back are necessarily a response? No, because I already knew I had a physiologic response to that cat. But I 100% think that that lip lick might be towards that hand in front of her, right? And it's certainly feasible that the body push to the back of the crate is also being influenced by the owner communicating back, right? So here's how my dog's communicating back to the owner now in a very stressful state of mind. Okay, and this is not where we want our owners to end up. Okay, let's look at our next frame. Some really good cat body language here too. We've even got a paw raise on that cat and some pinned ears, but you guys look at that dog. See if you see what I see. And this is actually, again, another moment in time I was trying to capture for you that I'm going to point out, and then I want you guys to watch for when we watch the video again. Give you a couple seconds. Okay. All right, let's see what we got. So in this video, what actually happens is the dog actually punches. So she muzzle punches the crate and air snaps towards the cat, right? So a muzzle punch, an air snap, I am at a level 1 bite right now, okay? This dog is so stressed, so upset about the situation. I have so many hormones, right, that I am moving into aggressive signaling. And again, it's just going to move up my ladder of aggression, and I'm going to end up with a dog in a mental state I do not want, who is responding in an aggressive manner because of that state, right? And I'm putting everybody at risk. So really important to note where we're at and how this communication can change. All right, let's look at our final frame and break it down. Okay, so anybody, I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds. This is one of my favorite signals. I think it's my favorite because people just miss it all the time. Let me give you a couple seconds. Think about, you guys will notice at the bottom of the picture on the left, I put a note where the cat is sitting. Okay, so let's go to our next one and see what we see. Hopefully you all got that averted gaze, right? Body shifted to the back of the crate. My ears remain tightly pinned back. So that averted gaze, an averted gaze is a distance increasing signal. Doesn't matter if I have a stressed dog, an anxious dog, a fearful dog, it is a signal that is saying, please back up and give me some space, right? So this dog really wants this cat to go away. So we're going to watch the video here in just a second, but I want to ask you guys before we do that, do we think this dog is happy, stressed, anxious, or fearful? Well, I think this dog is anxious. I don't know if the anxiety is because the cat is so near her safe place and she's worried about that. I don't know if the anxiety is because she can't get to the cat to protect herself. Some of the anxiety may be from the owner. Maybe she just doesn't know how to react or what the cat is, right? But this is anxiety at its best. And what I want you guys again to note as you rewatch the video is how it progresses. We started a pretty intense state of stress, and we just move quickly up the ranks of arousal into aggression, all as a response to the anxiety. And what I want you guys to note is the signals as they move forward. So let's go ahead and play that video one last time.
Good for Zora. You want a treat? Zora. Zora. Hey. Okay, Bucks. Okay.
right, so you guys can see how those signals intensify. The other thing you guys should have noticed is how the barking starts intermittently and then becomes more constant, right? It's a pretty high-pitched bark, but there's also intermittent growling in there as well. Other things happening that we also didn't point out in our frames is we've got some sweaty paw prints on the bottom, right? Physiologic response, so that's not controlled by the body. So we've got a lot of hormones being produced here too. And this is certainly a state where we're going to be at high risk, right, for this cat if this dog comes out of the crate. But I feel bad for this dog. She's so upset. She can't get away or get to this cat either. And really the cat is not helping the situation. Other signals too to point out that we talked about in our first video is that dog able to respond to cues? At the very beginning, she's able to respond to her name, right? She actually looks at the treat. She doesn't eat it, right? So not taking treats, not responding to cues are also very good signals as far as where our dogs are at in their mental state. So keep that in mind as you guys are working with dogs. All right, now let's go to our next video. We're going to watch it, and then we're going to interpret frame by frame on it. So we'll start it.
You want a treat? Come here. I haven't bitten you yet. Yeah. Smarty pants. Here you go. Good job. What do you think I want from you, kid? I don't want anything. You're doing a good job of what you're doing right now. I would love to get that harness off of you. And I'd love to get you off a drag leash and get your GPS collar on you. There you go. Yeah, nobody's making you do anything. Those are pretty good salmon snacks, aren't they? Good girl.
All right, so I really like this video, right? Remember, we're talking about fluidity of communication. So our first video really showed how we can kind of progress through stress, it becomes more aroused, our signals become intense and end up in an aggressive display of signaling based on where we're at mentally, okay? And the signals that show us that. This video shows us kind of this back and flow, back and flow. We're going to talk about that. So let's work to break down some of the frames of this video. Let's start with our first frame. I'm going to have you guys look at it and then give you a couple seconds to think through it and tell me what you see. So I'll give you a couple seconds. Okay, so now let's see what we see in this video. So we've got that tail below the back. Very good thing to note. It pretty much sits parallel to the legs. The whole video goes in between them a little bit, but pretty much parallel. One ear to the side, one forward. Definitely have some dilated pupils. Nice lip lick happening right there. And look at our legs, one leg forward and one back, right? So it's almost like this dog, she can't decide what she wants. She's very conflicted in this specific image, right? And if you guys also notice the mat she's standing on, we have some sweaty paws. So we've already got some physiologic response happening here, right? So certainly stressed dog, hormones are active. Let's see where we go as far as our arousal. So let's go to our next picture and let's break it down. Okay, so, all right, let's talk about what we see here. Body starts to get a little bit lowered. Still have that direct stare now with dilated pupils, closed mouth. Slight paw raise, you barely notice it on that left side, and my weight is still distributed towards the back, right? And this is a dog who is also barking intermittently, but it's not a high-pitched bark. It's a lower bark, which is more concern of worry or fear, right? And then in between that low bark, you've also kind of got that gurgling, right? And a little bit of almost like a chuck happening in between. It's like she doesn't even really know what she's saying or what to do. Should I bark or should I not? But so a lot of conflict here. And we also see some other behaviors that I'm going to point out in the next couple of frames as well that talk about or show us how she's trying to communicate. So let's look at our next frame and break it down. Oh, here's my favorite signal. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to figure it out. Okay, so let's see, what do we see here? Hopefully everybody got that averted gaze. Yeah, so really nice way to say, hey lady, your salmon treats are pretty cool, but I really wish you'd back off, right? So in this situation, this dog is able to come up and get the treat. The treat is high enough value. So she's eating, that's good. And the treats are helping us because food is going to counteract any hormones that are creating or being released due to this dog being worried, okay? But as soon as she takes the treat, she's also then immediately backing off, right? And giving those signals for the lady to stay away. So she's over here and she's really upset. And then I'm going to come forward just enough to do this. And then I'm going to back up over here, right? So remember, you have this ebb and flow with communication. So let's look at our next frame. Ah, very nice picture here, moment in time for that treat. So everybody take a minute, look at what you see. All right, so let's talk about what we're seeing. Hopefully you guys are all looking at that position, right? So now I've got that hunkered, lowered body. This is because the dog is coming forward, right? So the treat is a high enough motivation for her to come forward, but the signals intensify as she comes forward because that scary thing is closer, right? You've got the direct stare. There's my dilated pupils, closed mouth, right? Hyperextended legs. She is not committed to approaching this owner. And that tail is back there tucked between those legs a little bit, right? So coming closer to this person, right, is actually putting her in a more aroused, more intense state of signaling with where she's at mentally with her interactions. But then, and we're going to watch our video again, when she backs up, we see those signals actually be not so intense. And we also see some signals that I think, in my opinion, help the dog calm down. So let's look at our next frame and we'll break those down more. All right, so here we are. She's backed up a little bit. She's looking at the owner. You guys take a minute, tell me what you see. Okay, so let's talk about what we see in this frame. Slightly furrowed brow, nice ears. I still got one up, one to the side. Maybe that's her normal ear as far as carrying the ears. Upright, tense posture, closed mouth still, those dilated pupils, and that tail is straight down parallel to the hind legs, right? So in my opinion, with this dog, I think she is fearful. I think she is scared of what is going to happen, right? Scared of this person, scared of the interaction. Who knows exactly? Maybe it's all of the above, but she is fearful. But what I want you guys to pay attention to when we rewatch this video is that this dog almost pushes herself forward for the treat. Getting closer, her signals intensify. Right? My hormones probably increase. That scary thing is closer to me. But then the dog backs up. And when she backs up, I've got some really unique signals. I want you guys to watch this dog and see her do what when she jumps back, but it's almost like a play bow in there, right? Now play bow that's the word for it, play bow. But remember, each dog's an individual. They may show signals that don't necessarily coincide with what we think and maybe how the dogs communicate. Or it may be a displacement signal. Maybe it's how this dog calms herself down. Maybe it's really an appeasement signal. Maybe when she backs up and she kind of does that play bow and does that brr, brr, she's calming herself down. So in this situation, the dog gets closer to what's scary, things intensify, but then she backs up and kind of things, I don't know if decrease is the right word, right? But things, she gets to a point where she's okay with her signals to the point where she's able to come forward again, right? So it's this back and forth, and it's not this continued level of, or levels of the signals escalating, intensifying, right? And that's really important to note. Although I will say, this is not a dog I would want to push, right? I would not want to try to get my hands on her, get that rope, and get her closer to me to get that harness off, because we could easily push her to the point where those signals are so intense, she's so aroused, we end up with aggressive behaviors. So let's watch this video again, and you guys decide what you think about this fearful dog. See that kind of play bow? And then she comes back forward.
Punchy. Come here. I haven't bitten you yet. Yeah. Smarty pants. Here you go.
I'm gonna take the treat.
Good
Oh,
job.
super worried. And I'm backing off.
What do you think I want from you, kid?
But she doesn't go run. She doesn't take off to the end of the yard. She's got all that space behind her. She stays there.
Harness off of you. And I'd love to get you off a drag leash and get your GPS collar on you. There you go.
Too much. And I'm gonna back up again.
Yeah, nobody's making you do anything. Those are some pretty good salmon snacks, aren't they? Good girl.
So really nice video of this dog just kind of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This person, this owner, right? She doesn't move. She doesn't try to push her. She doesn't try to touch her. She's simply handing her food, which is the perfect thing we want to do in this situation, so that we don't end up sending this dog down a different path of communication. So this is a really nice video. Okay, let's go to our last video and look at the ebb and flow between two dogs, right? So we've seen a dog, cat, human. We've seen a dog, human. Now let's talk about two dogs. So again, we're going to watch the whole video and then we'll break down our frames and look at our body language.
It's like, I got you. I got you where I wanted. Oh my gosh. So cute.
Okay, so we're going to break down these videos now. Not a lot of barking, right? So we've got a lot of body language. We have an owner talking who I don't think knows how to interpret her dogs at all. I would not call this cute. That's just me. All right, let's look at our first picture. So you guys look at these two dogs. We're going to look at the signals on both the dogs, right? This is about communication between the two of them. And you guys tell me what you see. Okay, all right, so let's go to our next frame and let's talk about this. So on the larger dog, I've got a stiff tail, really above the level of the back, right? Tense muscles, almost have like a C-shaped mouth with him and a furrowed brow, ears forward. So he is highly aroused right now with this play. Keep in mind that arousal, as we've talked about with our intensity and signaling, is very closely linked to aggression, okay? And then our smaller dog, we've got pinned back ears, tail is tightly tucked. She does have a V-shaped mouth with her tongue hanging out, right? But she still doesn't look wonderfully happy to me, even though I have that V mouth, right? So that's, again, why it's important to look at the whole dog, the picture, and why we have to look at how things change based on what's happening around them. So let's look at our next frame. Okay, so tail tightly arched over the back in a curl. You guys can see how tense those muscles are, right? Tell me what else you see. Give you a couple seconds and then we'll break it down. Okay, let's look at what we've got. Got some piloerection on there too. Very forward body. Still have that C mouth and forward ears, tongue hanging out, right? So my piloerection, I know I've got hormones being released from that brain. So my arousal is increasing in my play style and my form of communication to the other dog. Intensity, my signals are going to go up in intensity. Really important when we're looking at play with dogs. So, all right, let's look at our next frame. And I will give you guys a couple seconds to look at the body language here as well. Okay, so let's see what we see here. So I have mounting happening. Okay, he keeps trying to mount her. You guys notice in the video, right? He's putting his head over her neck. He's a very, has a very bullying style of play, right? Now, we're not going to get into dominance. Dominant submission is a relationship between two dogs. We could maybe argue some of that's happening here, but this is really about identifying body language, and we'll save that webinar for another day, which will take another amount of time to talk about. But he is mounting, okay? And that's where I think that head over her gets started, right, with that mounting. And mounting can be seen, as we learned in our first webinar, during play, conflict, even appeasement, right? So it can be displayed all the time. And we'll see it a lot when dogs are just overstimulated, which is our situation here, okay? Got that tail high over his back. And what is that poor little dog doing who is being mounted? She is giving him a big old whale eye, right? And whale eye means back off. And for those of you who don't know what a whale eye is or missed it in our first webinar, a whale eye is when they look at you, but they show you that white of the eye, okay? And that is a please back off. My 8-year-old does it to me when she's really mad at me. All right, so now let's go to our next frame and look at the body language there. I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds again. Okay. All right, so let's break this down and look at what we're seeing in this frame. Our big dog, we've still got that tense body now over her, on top of her, tail tightly curled, ears forward, very direct stare. I mean, this guy is really intense. And then she is on her back with her ears back, staring back at him, panting, that C-shaped mouth. But again, in this situation, I think it's her mouth and how it physically sits on her. But she is exposing her belly. She is really just, please leave me alone, right? She is trying to appease him, to get him. She's trying to calm herself down. And in the meantime, hopefully, he reads her signal and backs off. But unfortunately, as we already saw in our video, he does not read any of her signals. And that is the problem when you have play like this, is that one dog is not reading the other dog and not responding. We do not have an appropriate give or take here. And this can quickly turn into a problem. So let's look at our last frame. and look at our body language there. And we're going to walk through the video again and talk about it. So I'll give you guys a couple seconds to identify things here. All right, so let's see what you all see, what I saw too. So my smaller dog, I've got that, remember that curved body away from another dog, right? Like trying to say, hey, hang on just a second, give me a second. And she also has that straight tail down against her legs and even tucked most of the time. And she is panting big time, right? My ears are kind of flopped, but still remaining back. He still has that tense body, one ear forward, one flopped, and that tight tail over the back, right? Very important to notice, and really just coming still right at her, very direct, okay, and abrupt. So this is play. Is this the kind of play we want? Is there appropriate give and take here? In my professional opinion, there is not, right? This is one dog whose play style is very abrupt, direct, intense, and the other dog does not appreciate it and is trying intensely to signal to him to please give her some space, please back off. I don't know that she wouldn't not play with him, but the way he's playing, she does not like it, right? And she's trying to get away from him over and over again. And these owners, unfortunately, do not recognize that. And this is the perfect scenario if we haven't communicated with our owners, if we haven't educated them on how a dog plays and how they communicate with other dogs, we're going to run into a problem. Somebody's going to snap. In fact, at one point in this video, you'll see the little dog snap. It just takes that one snap and then the big dog's going to snap back. And remember, stress, aroused, aggression. Here's my signaling, and I've got it with this fluidity of the play here, right? And when I get to that aggression, I'm going to end up with a dog fight, and that's not what we want. So you guys watch it again, and then see what you see.
I got you. I got you where I wanted.
She even kind of snapped at him right there. Did you guys catch that?
So cute.
Now, do I think that this bigger dog is dog aggressive? I don't, actually. I think he is just really aroused and he doesn't know how to play more calmly. Certainly, we could break down how to teach or help a dog learn how to play more calmly. But I do think that this is the perfect storm for miscommunication between two dogs and for a potential dog fight to happen, right? So again, we want to be able to understand our dogs, what they're saying to us, communicate with us so that we can educate our owners to help them help their dogs learn and help them learn and prevent potential problems, right? So this is why we're breaking all this down. And hopefully from the 3 videos today, you guys have been able to see how communication can escalate, how it can go back and forth, right? And that's really what you're looking at when you look at the communication overall, right? So thank you guys for joining us. Remember, when you're looking at body language and interpreting it, it's in this constant state of flux, right? It's fluid, it moves, it changes based on what's happening. Signals can be used in a variety of settings for a variety of things, and each dog may signal differently, right? Remember that fearful dog that almost looked like a play bow as a signal to this other person, or maybe it was just for herself to calm herself down. So thank you guys all for joining us. I'm gonna let Lisa take it from here.
All right, thank you all, and thank you to Kate for that great webinar. For more information about how Good Pup can work with your rescue or shelter organization, please reach out to Allie Mayer. If you have any feedback or suggestions for other webinars, please email Dexter. Their email addresses are there, and we will see you at our next webinar in December. Thank you.